Doctors have read it. What patient made you go, how the F are you even alive? Story 1. When I was 2 years old, I experienced a series of severe asthma attacks. After one particularly bad attack, my mother rushed me to the emergency room. In order to examine me, the doctors put me face down and performed a CT scan. After the scan, I had stopped breathing and had turned a frightening shade of blue. The scan revealed a mass the size of a volleyball in my chest. Emergency surgery revealed that the mass was a teratoma, a rare type of tumor that was meant to be my twin. It had grown so large that it had cut off my airway. Miraculously, I made a full recovery. Now, at the age of 31, I'm in perfect health, no asthma symptoms, no signs of the tumor. The only reminder of that night is a large scar that runs from the center of my chest to the center of my back. Story 2. A patient of mine recently had a narrow escape from tragedy. A car accident pinned him to a telephone pole, and he was literally cut in half at the pelvis. The paramedics arrived on the scene and carried his legs in separately. Yet amazingly, he was still conscious and talking to me. We worked quickly to put in a central line and get all the bleeders litigated by 5 different surgeons. Despite the pain he was in, the patient declined pain meds. A true legend. Within minutes, he was in the operating room at a major academic center with an excellent trauma surgery team. Miraculously, he survived, and though it is unknown what his quality of life was like afterward, it is safe to say it was an incredible feat. Story 3. After 6 hours of open-heart CABG surgery, my ICU patient was unfortunate enough to require his chest to be reopened less than an hour later. He needed a large amount of blood, and his heart had to be massaged and shocked 4 times. As there was no time to take him back to the operating room, the cardiothoracic surgeon had to operate in the ICU. It was revealed that he was an illicit drug abuser and alcoholic, and the nurses even nicknamed him the cockroach. For the following 4 weeks, I checked in on him every day, but he remained unresponsive. On the second week, we consulted an ENT due to maggots being discovered in his nose. I was certain that this would be the end of him. But to my surprise, on the 4th week, on the 24th day at 6 a.m., he opened his eyes. Although he now has a permanent tracheostomy and an ostomy, he was somehow alive. Story 4. 1 year ago, a pair of photos of me before and after brain surgeries appeared on the front page. Although the mortality rate for an acute subdural hematoma ranges from 50 to 90%, I was fortunate to survive with the odds stacked against me. Additionally, only 20 to 30% of those who live are able to regain brain function. The bleeding in my skull had caused cranial herniation, with my brain shifting 5 millimeters, leading to compression of my brainstem into my spinal cord. Despite all of this, I not only survived, but recovered to such a degree that I was able to work, get married, travel the world, and even return to my pre-illness physical condition. My neurosurgeon still refers to it as a medical miracle. Story 5. A lady in her mid-30s was admitted to the clinic for a 1-week follow-up after having her foot amputated due to diabetes. Her blood glucose was dangerously high at 600 mg/dl. The normal range is 80 to 120, and the wound was severely infected. The medical team administered super-concentrated doses of insulin to bring the reading back down to the 200s. She was placed on a strict diet, and yet her glucose levels wouldn't drop any lower than 250. It was later discovered that her teenage children were sneaking large 64-ounce sodas and candy bars into the hospital, only a week after she had her foot amputated due to uncontrolled diabetes. This case was a testament to the tenacity of the human spirit, as the patient was able to continue to function despite the trauma and disease. Story 6. My wife's father succumbed to the devastating effects of diabetes. After being in and out of the hospital for years, he was admitted one fateful Friday. Sadly, a mere 2 days later, the doctors had to amputate his toes, and by Monday, he had passed away. Despite the sorrow of his family, no one was taken completely by surprise. As we sifted through his apartment, we encountered a shocking discovery. Candy was literally everywhere. Under the cushions, in the pillows, even in his bed, and all of the cupboards. Even with my own sweet tooth, I couldn't comprehend the need for so much candy. It became clear that he had recklessly hastened his own death. Story 7. My boyfriend's dad has been a heavy drinker and drug user for many years. 10 years ago, we made the difficult journey over to his province to say our goodbyes, and he had gone into a coma. Miraculously, he recovered, but he still chooses to ignore the advice to abstain from alcohol. We used to live closer to him, and my boyfriend had a habit of enabling his father by buying him beer. Thankfully, we now live 10 hours away, so at least he is no longer enabling his father's bad habits. Despite his father's lifestyle, it is still hard to believe that he is still alive. Story 8. I recently encountered an interesting case in my trauma unit. A man had fallen off a roof, and he recounted that he felt the bars of the scaffolding as he went down. Initially, we thought he had fractured his femur, but it turned out to be a minor hematoma. The patient next to him had broken his ribs and had a minor fracture to the C-spine when he had stumbled while reaching for his keys. Story 9. As a medical student on my emergency ward rotation, I was presented with a remarkable case. A man had fallen off the 7th or 8th floor balcony, landing on his head. He was brought in DOA, and we were unable to measure his blood pressure. As a student, my role was to stand by and help administer the countless bags of blood transfused into him. The initial CT scan revealed his cervical spine had been reduced to dust. I thought he probably wouldn't survive, but when I began my ICU rotation a month later, I was astonished to find him awake and conscious. Story 10. My mom and her colleagues were baffled when a man accompanied by police officers entered the ER during her internship. Upon seeing the man, who was in perfect health and walking around, they were completely perplexed. The officers then presented them with a photo of a piece of crumpled metal that used to be a car only moments before. Miraculously, the man had been pulled from the car right before it burst into flames, and incredibly, he hadn't suffered a single injury. This man quickly gained a special nickname among the hospital staff: the Immortal. Story 11. My dad was speeding along in his Toyota Avalon when a Dodge Ram pickup came careening around the corner at 65 miles per hour and smashed into the driver's side. The sheer force of the collision caused the spare tire to rip out of its bolted-down position in the truck. Dad's car was sent flying into a nearby cornfield where it landed with a permanent imprint of the Dodge Ram logo. It was barely recognizable as a car. Miraculously, he managed to crawl out of the passenger side and walked away unscathed. I was in shock when he informed me of the accident, but when I finally saw the car for myself, the full gravity of the situation hit me like a ton of bricks. It was then that I truly understood how close I had come to losing my dad that day, and the sight of the mangled car filled me with a deep, overwhelming fear. Story 12. My sister was 9 years old when she had a horrific accident. She fell from a 35-foot-high bluff and landed headfirst on the hard bedrock, shattering every bone in her skull. Even the most experienced neurosurgeon couldn't do anything for her, giving her a meager 10% chance of surviving the night. However, against all odds, she miraculously recovered after 3 weeks in a coma and 3 months in an ICU. After 6 months as an inpatient, she's still alive today, though she has sustained permanent damage. It's incredible how much kids can recover from such a tragic accident. Story 13. At the age of 87, my dad has faced a number of health challenges. Chief among them were prostate, liver, bowel, and colon cancers, as well as a series of skin cancer treatments involving reconstructive surgery on his tibia region and the back of his hands. Every year, he must have at least one skin lesion removed. Additionally, he suffered 2 heart attacks, a 6-tuple bypass, pneumonia, a huge abscess, and a small stroke. His doctor is continually astounded to see him still walking around and visits him every 6 months to check up on him.